Buddy, I apologize. It was totally not in my hands. Let me explain very, very briefly. I'm broadcasting from my house because I had COVID. Actually, I could have gone into the studio, but I'm obeying the rules of number of days out. I am negative. I am not positive for COVID. I am very happy to tell you that I'm fine. But still broadcasting from home when simply for reasons I have no idea, the entire internet in this house went down. So I'm using a special box to broadcast, but I can't take the calls as I usually do because that relies on the house internet. Anyway, I'm back with Justin Folk. Justin is the fantastic filmmaker who has directed No Safe Spaces, so I worked with him for years. He is a joy. He's a wonderful human being and a very talented director. And he now has something up for a PragerU on trade schools. What is it titled, Justin?
It's called Trading Up, our case for the trade schools.
By the way, when you got knocked off, were you talking about us and COVID?
I was. Apparently, somebody didn't want us talking about that.
Well, go ahead.
As you know, I tested positive the same day that you did. Along with you, I was excited to get the natural immunity and had the therapeutics ready to go, and I'm feeling great. And don't want to make light of this virus, but there are treatments available, and I'm so glad you're feeling better, and I'm feeling good, and I'm celebrating 7 days of natural immunity here. So,
yeah, the issue is not making light of. If anybody makes light of, it is the people who make light of the therapeutics. We're not making light of the virus. We take it seriously enough to have taken a whole regimen of therapeutics. It's somewhat of a farce to dismiss us as making light of the virus. The fact that we don't believe that the only way to fight it is through a vaccine doesn't mean we take it lightly. It's completely dishonest. Anyway, let's talk about this very important documentary. So what's the thesis?
Well, Dennis, going back to No Safe Spaces, you and I spent a lot of time on college campuses, and we just saw the cultural and intellectual rot that was taking place in people's kids' minds and the indoctrination. And so, making this movie about the trades is actually very therapeutic for me because, it really showed that there are other options out there available for young people that want to get ahead in life, make a living, and get an education. And so this documentary touches on all the trades that are available out there and that this country needs right now. Our country needs more skilled tradespeople. About half the trades workforce is going to retire in the next 10 years. And we could use a lot more skilled tradespeople out there, and maybe a lot less people with gender studies degrees and, $100,000 of debt. So this movie goes into talking about the importance of trades, talking about how well you can do in the trades. I got to work with a couple great guys on this film. Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs is in the film. Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad, Poor Dad author, is in the film. But more importantly, the story itself centers around a real-life example of somebody that didn't choose the traditional path and has benefited greatly from learning a skilled trade. Chloe Hudson is a young female welder, and she works for Joe Gibbs Racing and Joe Gibbs Aviation, building parts for NASCAR race cars and experimental aircraft. And Chloe was a recipient of the Work Ethics Scholarship Program from Micro Works Foundation. That's how we found her. And she's an incredible, inspiring story. Instead of going into hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt to become a surgeon like she wanted to be, she went to trade school and learned how to weld. And she loves her job. She does very, very well financially. She's actually sponsored by Lincoln Electric, which is a manufacturer of welding machines. And, the film, I think, is worth watching just for her. I mean, she's a total star. And so, the film goes into a lot of things in regard to the trades. It talks about the massive PR campaign that has been happening in this country for the last 40 years that's being pushed by universities to convince students and parents that there's no future if you don't get a typical 4-year degree, and you'll just end up as a fat guy named Bubba with with a butt crack hanging out and turning a wrench. And that's just patently false. The trades have a big stigma to overcome, and it's people like Chloe Hudson that are breaking that stigma. So, and one thing I want to point out, Dennis, too, is this documentary is not anti-education at all. It's actually very pro-education. You yourself, Dennis, are very pro-education. You've been spending your whole life educating people, and of course you created PragerU. But the film makes a case that education is not a one-size-fit-all endeavor. Obviously, if you want to be a doctor, you have to go to medical school. But if you're a young person and you can learn skills that'll make you valuable to society without having your mind corrupted, with indoctrination at a 4-year university.
Right. All right. Let me get back to you, Justin. This is huge. Sure. The film is up at prageru.com, and it's extremely inspiring. And relieffactor.com is also inspiring, to be perfectly honest. It is one of the great products I've ever advertised. If you have joint or muscle pain, give it a 3-week try. You will know in 3 weeks if it works. How do you like that for a product? If it doesn't work in 3 weeks, they say it won't work. It probably won't work. Let's put it that way. So they have a 3-week price of $19.95. Go to relieffactor.com, 800-500-8384.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
About your time in the White House, what kind of a ride that was for you. We played this clip at the beginning, this insanity. Why didn't you mention this? You mean the thing I talked about 2 days ago at length from this point? But he didn't tweet about it. I mean, just the sheer insanity. Talk to us about what that was like to live through. And then give us your take on what went wrong in the Trump administration. What went right, what went wrong?
So, look, it was tumultuous. It was intense. I think that, look, this goes back to what we were just talking about. Trump upset the apple cart. And every president, both parties that come in, need 3 groups, right? You need the press, you need donors, and you need sort of the permanent K Street lobbyist types. Trump's view was, if you want to join me, great, but I don't need you. Yeah. And what happened was...
Because he won without them.
Yes. And they were... But here's the thing. I'll say it in a very PG way, but, they're used to having their butt kissed. And they're used to people saying, I'd love to have you come over to my house in Georgetown for a dinner party where we can just the ins and outs of the NATO, it's like they want you to, and he was like, look, I'm doing this. I'm doing it this way.
If you want to join me,
join me, great, but I don't need you. And it pissed them off.
Yeah, this especially the conservatives who thought that they were, the Bill Kristols of the world. So, what do you mean you're not coming to me for a briefing as a candidate?
How do you do this?
How dare you?
How dare you? I'm part of the institution.
Right.
I come
Kiss
with
the ring.
I come with the drapes.
Right.
And I think that was upset, and especially for the press corps. And that was their thing, is that they were like, you're supposed to do this. You're supposed to act this way. You're supposed to... And again, my sort of marching orders from Trump were get my message out, do what I want.
So
keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. There's no doubt about it. America is in the middle of a culture war. The battle between left and right is real. One side believes in American greatness. The other wants to tear it down. The Salem Radio Network and the Salem Podcast Network is looking for a few warriors who are already fighting this war. This is your chance to nominate a person worthy of the honor of being Salem's Culture Warrior of 2021. Go to this show's website and click on the banner. Help us select Salem's Culture Warrior of the Year.
Hi, everybody. Justin Falk, the documentary film director, directed No Safe Spaces, now a PragerU mini-doc, Trading Up, Our Case for Trade Schools. So what is the story in the United States right now? Are trade schools enrolling a lot more people?
Yeah, I think they are. I hope so. We definitely need it. There's a huge void to fill. We need these workers. I know trade schools are getting more and more creative. In the film, we actually profile a charter school in Colorado, which is actually grades 6th grade to 12, where they're teaching young people trades right away, so that once they leave high school, they'll get an associate's degree and they're ready to work immediately. So I think the trade schools are doing well. If you look at what you can make coming out of trade school, just as a starting salary, it's really astounding, and you don't have all the debt to go with it. So I think a lot of people need to look at trade schools, and I think people need to keep in mind the trades it's not just plumbing and heating. You know, there's all kinds of different trades out there for different types of people. To be a chef, that's a tradesman. Air traffic controllers, we have a shortage of air traffic controllers in this country, and their starting salary is above 6 figures in a lot of cases. So there's a big case to be made for young people that really want opportunity to go and take a look at the trade schools that are out there.
I never thought of air traffic control as a trade school subject.
Yeah, sure. They have their own trade school. It's put on by the FAA, and I'm not entirely sure how long the course is. I think it's maybe a couple years, but once they graduate, they have a very, very high-paying job waiting for them. And we've seen recently that we really need air traffic controllers to keep our planes in the air and safe.
Well, you did a great job. The mini doc is up at PragerU.com. It could change your child's life or your life for the better. Trading Up, Our Case for Trade Schools. And let me just say, Justin, that should it ever happen again, you're the guy I'd want to get COVID with.
That warms my heart, Dennis. It really does. Likewise.
You're a terrific guy. You really are. It's an honor to work with you. Trading Up, Our Case for Trade Schools. Somehow I think that the country would do a lot better with more people in trade schools than in regular colleges. We'll be back.
Streaming on Salem Now.
I grew up poor, which is even worse than being poor.
Our lunch consisted of whatever my mother could scrape together from the dinner the night before. We would have sandwiches with no meat.
My American dream entailed working hard and making $20,000 a year. But I surpassed that goal and became a corporate CEO.
Put in an economic growth plan called 999.
999! We'll all be able to say, free at last! Free at last!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Man, I miss my father, and I want him to be here with me, but he's not.
We all had something in common. A lot of us were miserable. We had no fathers in our lives.
This is how I began the life of crime. I desired to have a father who would tell me that what I did was wrong.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
The only time you can come to Christ when the Spirit of God comes.
You ever thought of going to seminary?
Billy Graham.
Gloria a Dios, hermanos.
Él está listo para ser transformado por el poder de su palabra.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Mark Milley admitted yesterday that for that pathetic pseudo-journalist Bob Woodward, for his new blockbuster dishing book of scandal, Mark Milley gave him hours of interviews. Hours? Sorry. How busy should the chairman of the Joint Chiefs be? Just curious. As the Taliban is ready to take back Afghanistan, these are interviews he gave this stinking year. This year. As the Taliban is rising, as China is building its military, as Iran is threatening us, as Russia is being ever more militaristic, you're sitting down for hours with an avowed, rabid Democrat, quote-unquote, journalist to give inside scoops on how you stood up to President Trump by undermining the chain of command that you, by the Constitution, are not a part of? What the hell are you doing? Maybe those hours could have been spent, I don't know, reading the Long War Journal by our friend Bill Roggio, where he predicted in March that the Taliban would be in control and Kabul would fall. Maybe you would better spend your time reading books like Cynical Theories, reading the works of Chris Rufo about what critical race theory really is and why it's racism and bigotry. But oh no, you had to be a politician.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
You're out of your mind if you think this family can pick you